So collaboration is the action of working with someone to produce a desired result or to cooperate within an agency, and design to create, fashion, or execute or construct according to a plan. Collaborative design puts the team members together, and the goal is that you get a result that everybody can live with. The biggest thing that you have to pay attention to when you're doing this is you've got to understand this is not just you building a facility. It's very important that the occupants of the facility and the equipment that will occupy the facility are taken into account. You've got to pay attention to your flexibility and scalability. If you go out and pour a whole bunch of cash in this thing up front, put in all of your large-scale power and cooling equipment, the first thing you're going to have is an inefficient mess, right? Because redundancy comes with a certain cost. When you have multiple UPS components running, multiple redundant cooling systems running way ahead of need, your power utilization effectiveness goes off the chart. Deliverables must be in line with the goals and objectives of the organization. If we don't take anything else away from this, we want to take away that one fact. What you're building has to support the organization and what the organizational goals are. A lot of folks want to go out and want to build a Facebook or a Microsoft or a Google style data center because that's cool, right? There's a huge amount of cool factor in that. But 99 out of time, it's not appropriate for your organization. People will overscale, they will overbuild, they will overspend, and sometimes even that gets abandoned. Things to keep in mind that you need to support: data security. How are you going to keep the data secure in an environment where you've got to have electrical contractors, HVAC contractors, sometimes structured cabling that's third party, personally identifiable information, or PII, is kind of a new, very sensitive term in banking environment, but it comes into play in the hospital environment also. HIPAA, future planning for competitive advantage. You don't want people coming in, getting an idea of your architecture and being able to go out and compete with that more effectively, or figure out what your next move is and try to cut you off. Protection of proprietary knowledge. Keeping control of the data so it does not leave. You may need to build for public image. Some companies really want a very architecturally pretty building. That comes with a cost. That costs sometimes because somebody wants a beautiful canopy on the front, or a certain planting and landscaping setup may begin to eat into your budget for structural and the overall size of the building, and you might not get as big a mechanical area as you were hoping for. Architecture, green initiatives all come into play. A lot of companies are really very interested in having that public face of LEED, or a lot of these local councils that want you to do green things. You have to figure out how to incorporate the items that make good business sense. If your company really wants to be LEED certified, also comes with a cost, and has to be part of the design. Efficiencies and cost controls is in planning. Up front, the time that you put into planning, the time you put into talking with your peers, the folks in IT, the folks in the C-suite that are going to come walking through, and they're going to say, well, I really like this, but why don't we do something else over here, take that wall out, relocate it. Sometimes they'll want to put up screens and monitors that will have your building status on it. And a lot of times that's after the fact, right? So that comes into cost control. You begin to kind of lose control when you're doing a lot of rework, and it gets into a kind of a tough spot because it's really hard to tell the CEO, no, we're not going to do that. And he usually doesn't want to hear it when you come back and tell him how much it's going to add. Availability of customer-facing applications. How many in the room have customer-facing applications? Okay, some of us have that. The most important thing with us in banking right now is that everybody wants to use their handheld device. When you go to your handheld device, that app is supposed to work. It only works if it connects back to the data center, the data is available. So you have to think about availability. You have to look at, do you need concurrent maintainability so that you can do maintenance work without causing impacts? One size does not fit all. Cookie cutter approaches. I'm going to do mine like Bob did his because Bob's is great and he loves it. But is it right for your business? Is it right for your application? Designs must be focused on flexibility and the ability to change and adapt quickly. So how do we make a data center a flexible environment? Generally, we think of those environments as kind of a rigid, unchanging entity. However, there are things like modular pod-style designs that can be flexed up or down as need changes. And economies of scale and equipment selection. When you're looking at your UPS sizing, oftentimes the size that is appropriate for what you need now is very close to the next size up in a UPS. You can take a 500 kVA UPS, upsize it to a 750, give you a little scalability there for really not much more impact to the budget. And that can really reduce your long-term expenses. But you should be able to look at your growth over time to figure out what this number really needs to look like. So if you're tracking UPS utilization, cooling utilization, raised floor either in square footage or in rack units, the longer you trend that, the more accurate historical records that you're keeping, the better you'll be able to predict what's most likely going to happen in the future. And that's one important part of it. But technology changes a lot. We're seeing a lot of reduction in rack units through virtualization. We've got a lot of virtual machines on board now, UCS style equipment. So mainframe is kind of making a comeback in a lot of arenas. And when you're planning those kind of things, IT is the group that's going to have to tell you what they think they're going to do in the future. You've got to kind of cross the lines and sit down with those folks. Normally IT and facility management or construction don't talk a whole lot. How many of us have a device that just shows up on the dock? Nobody knew it was coming. It happens. So how do you plan for that flexibility to be able to quickly respond, get it on the floor, and help your company be successful?